Thank you for staying with us as campaigns begin ahead of 2027 election, and we're just off the Osun elections. We've invited the ADC Chieftain Dele Momodu to speak to us on these issues and more. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Campaigning has already begun for the 2027 presidential election. But before we get to that, I would like your quick reaction to the FCT Minister's comment on the just concluded Osun governorship election, that if the federal mines had been deployed, perhaps the results would have been different.
I think it was a very, very unusual, uncommon, and unfortunate statement for a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to make. But nothing is beyond our friend Nyesom Wike, the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. When I listened to him, I had to respond instantly because I knew that was an empty boast. If he had been in Osun, he would not have achieved anything. He is not bigger than the Senate president and all the governors who carried themselves to Osun to try to deliver Osun to APC. But the danger in his statement must be noted, especially as we approach January 2027. Wike is already telling us that he's going to be the chief enforcer to perform his usual magic. The only way APC can win the next presidential election and all the governorship elections is very simple. They will need to repeat what they attempted in Osun and failed woefully. I need to also remind Nyesom Wike, in case he has already forgotten, that 5 of them abandoned PDP in the last election, and 3 of them from Abia, Enugu, and Benue State, the governors, 3 of the G5 governors attempted to win senatorial seats in their respective states and also failed spectacularly. So that is to tell you that governors don't have the power of life and death. Wike would have to divide himself into 36 states plus Abuja for him to perform the kind of magic he thinks he can perform. That's my attitude to it. And the federal government, especially President Tinubu, should be very careful moving forward. The whole world is interested in Nigeria. Nigeria is the biggest, largest black population on earth. If anything goes wrong in Nigeria and there is a genocide, you can imagine how it will affect the whole world. So Wike is rather making life more difficult for Tinubu. One of the reasons I believe they lost Osun was the boastful nature of the Fadansis and the Wole Okes, who turned themselves into demigods in Osun, but they could not deliver at the end of the day.
All right. The government has said the removal of petrol subsidy has saved Nigeria about 15.8 trillion naira in 30 months. With those savings being highlighted as a major economic gain, what's your thought on how voters will be persuaded? Will they be persuaded by such figures, or will they ultimately judge the government by how the reforms have affected their daily lives and purchasing power?
In all sincerity, let me commend all the gentlemen and probably ladies who have worked on the Nigerian economy since President Tinubu took power. Yes, they've been able, theoretically, and to some extent, practically, they've been able to increase our IGR and so on and so forth. But nobody is talking about how much they have borrowed locally and internationally. I'm not an economist, but for you to tell Nigerians that you've achieved great things in the area of the economy, it must reflect in the lives of the people. How come now we have more money according to them? We have more revenue according to them, but it is not reflecting in the lives of the people. We are not able to balance budgets. These are questions that Nigerians would ask. So it is either you are frittering away all the gains of the last 4 years, you are being reckless with the way you are mismanaging the income to the country, or something else is happening. You are diverting the money for politics. That is the suspicion of an average Nigerian. So when a man is hungry and you are giving him highfalutin economic theories, they are not going to accept it. It is how it affects your body, your stomach. That is what people want to know. Nigerians, trust me, are suffering at the moment, and economic theories alone cannot persuade them to vote for APC.
I'm sure you've had this question put to you a number of times, but it's imperative we do again tonight. Campaigns have begun for the presidential election, and some would say arguably the two biggest opposition figures are working from two different angles, divided, it seems. Others are arguing that this division and the seeming lack of cohesion among the opposition will give APC a winning slate in 2027. Your thoughts?
If you ask me this question in my sleep, I will answer it the same way. The two mainstream opposition leaders are Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and former Governor Peter Obi. Unfortunately, they are not working together again this time around. But I believe this time around, it would affect the APC candidate, President Bola Tinubu, more than it will affect Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. The reason is very simple and straightforward. Both Peter Obi and Tinubu are from the southern parts of Nigeria. One is from the southeast, while one is from the southwest. And then they have in between the south-south, which I believe will be split down the line. For you, theoretically, to become president of Nigeria, you must lock down minimum 4 regions out of the 6 regions that make up Nigeria. So it means that Tinubu and Obi are going to split the southwest, the south-south, and the southeast. Tinubu was banking on those states when he tried to acquire, because what he did is like a merger and acquisition, to acquire all those governors from those zones to himself. For 2 reasons, not just for the votes, but for him to have unfettered access to the wealth of those southern regions. So those governors come from the richest, the wealthiest regions of Nigeria. So Tinubu has locked them down. But with Obi in the equation, Obi will definitely do very well in the south, do reasonably well in the south-south, and maybe a little bit in Lagos in the southwest. So that's already a danger signal to APC. Then in the north, you have the field wide open. Not 100%, but majority of the votes are expected to come from the northern part because the vote, they are highly political. So they vote, and then northeast, northwest, majority of the votes will go to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, while all three of them will split the north central. That is my permutation. And of course, Atiku Abubakar has the capacity to repeat what General Muhammadu Buhari did in 2015 when he was able to stroll across to the southern regions and was able to pick enough. So what Atiku needs is to be able to pick enough votes from the southern parts and then add it to his voluptuous votes in the northern parts. And I believe that will challenge Tinubu greatly. In the last election, Tinubu had Buhari to help him in the last election. Tinubu had Nasiru El-Rufai to help him in the last election. Now Buhari has gone to the great beyond, while our very good friend Nasiru El-Rufai is languishing in detention. So I don't know if the governors in APC today will have the capacity to deliver like those two delivered. And it's been suggested that one of the reasons that Nasiru is in detention is the fear of his power in the north. I don't know. So we will have to wait to see how that pans out.
Quickly and as briefly as you can, sir, there's been bias expressed against the INEC boss, that's Professor Amwapito, and of course his comments that they will use 98% of off-cycle elections, and the elections will use Beavers, IREV result viewing portal. We also have about 1.4 million ad hoc staff across more than all the polling units in the country. Can INEC deliver an election that people will see as credible when we've had this series of allegations? If some people going as far as asking that he steps aside.
No, I won't ask him to step aside. They are not going to import angels from heaven to manage an election. It is the willingness of Tinubu to play a fair game that will determine the outcome of the election. If the president is serious about bequeathing a worthy legacy like President Goodluck Jonathan did, then trust me, there is no problem. Nigerians are amongst the most peaceful people on earth. We are easy people. And what Nigerians want is for them to be able to go out without any harassment from thugs and from security bandits, because some security men behave like bandits on the day of election. Once we can curtail the excesses of those bandits, trust me, Nigerians will troop out. We saw it in 1993 when MKO Abiola contested against Bashir Tofa. There was no problem whatsoever. The fear right now is that if you ask an average Nigerian, do you trust Tinubu to deliver a free and fair and credible election? 90% of the people will tell you no. And that is not a good record for a leader. It happened in Osun last week. An average Osun man or woman was jittery of what Tinubu will do, because it's people who threatened mayhem publicly, went to police stations, walked out, and even issued more threats because they believed they have the cover and the protection of the commander-in-chief. This is the danger signal we must watch out for in 2027. But I believe Nigerians will come tops. Because this is not going to be just a battle between NDC, ADC, and APC. It's going to be the battle between Nigerians and APC. An average Nigerian today is in such bad state that they cannot wait to get rid of a government that is not performing. It's not a personal thing. It's nothing personal at all. It is the reality of our existence. And this existential threat is what will unite Nigerians, in my view. And I hope I am very right.
Chief Momodu, thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time and the insights you've provided.
Thank you, News Central, for inviting me. Thank you.